Welcome to Kermit Uncut, where at this time of year, I always count down my best and worst films of the year. But right now, because Kermit Uncut is coming to an end, I'm doing my top 10 best and worst films of the last 10 years. On the last blog, I did number 10 to number 6 of my best. Here's number 10 to number 6 of the worst movies of the last 10 years. And bear in mind, as I always say with these lists are completely subjective. I'm not saying these are objectively the worst films. These are just the films that have caused me, personally, the most pain.
Blackbeard, the pirate all pirates fear.
Captain, I wish to report a mutiny. I can name fingers and point names.
Pirates.
I once knew a Spaniard named something in Spanish.
He's coming for you, Jack.
So at number 10, I'm going to cheat immediately. It's a double bill. I've gone for not one, but two Pirates of the Caribbean movies, both of which came up in the last decade. Pirates of the Caribbean On Stranger Tides and Dead Men Tell No Tales. It's really hard to distinguish between the best and worst of those films. I mean, they're all pretty terrible. But both of those, I remember thinking, I can't believe this series is still going on. I can't believe this is still happening. I can't believe Johnny Depp is still doing that act. Everything else has moved on, the world has moved on, everything's changed, but he's still doing that act. And I know some people say, look, you've just got a thing about the Pirates movies. Yeah, I have got a thing about the Pirates movies. You know why? Because when the first one came out, I remember this so clearly. I went to the cinema. I went with Nigel Floyd. And on the way to the cinema, we were going, pirate movie. It's going to be great. We could really do with a pirate movie. Won't that be fun? Pirate movie. All these years later, there we are. Not one, but two entries in my worst 10 movies of the last 10 years.
I want to talk to you about the college thing, okay?
I'm so excited.
Hey, I'm not taking you with me.
And at number 9, it's another long-running series, and you may be surprised to know that it's only at number 9. I mean, Transformers gave me so many bad times over the years. You'll know that I did a series of blogs of smashing my head against things, against brick walls, against computers, when the new Transformers movie was coming out. But I had to pick one. In 2009, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen really was one of those moments. In fact, I think it was Revenge of the Fallen that I did the blog in which I ran into a concrete pillar to see whether it was better or worse than watching Revenge of the Fallen. It was better. Much better.
Fate rarely calls upon us at a moment of our choosing.
I don't want to be alone when she goes. Hello?
So on to number 8 of my top 10 worst movies of the last decade. And this raises an interesting question. I've always been aware that if you flag up a movie as being really bad, it can be seen as an incentive. People to go and see it. People said, oh, I saw that film. You know, you said it was really awful, so I had to go and see if it was as awful as you said. And when I first reviewed this film, I said I didn't want to encourage anyone to go and see it, and I still don't. But it is so bad, it has to be in the list. So in the most kind of low-key way I can possibly say, Wolves at the Door, of all the movies inspired by the Manson case, it is the most reprehensible, the most unnecessary, the most nasty, the most turgid, and the one for which everyone involved should feel the most embarrassed. Don't go and see it. Don't even think about it. Pretend I never mentioned it.
I've made a promise to myself that I'm not going to date anyone again until June has someone special in her life.
That could be a very long time.
She's like some hideous dragon guarding the princess.
Which brings us to number 7, and a film which I first hated a whole decade ago. In fact, I had completely forgotten about it until I was going back through old blogs, looking at the movies that I had reviewed back in 2008, and I came across The Hottie and the Nottie. The really strange thing with this is that I look back at my original review, I was furious. I mean, I was really angry. I thought the movie was morally repugnant. I got really cross about it. The best thing is this. I don't care anymore. I mean, I literally had to remind myself how much I hated the film. I do still hate it, but not in any bad way. I'm completely over it. It's like it doesn't exist.
Ages have passed since the gods walked among us. Before the war that divided us for eternity.
But you know what definitely does exist? My number 6 choice, Alex Proyas's Gods of Egypt. Now, the reason this definitely does exist is that Alex Proyas got very annoyed very publicly with critics in general about how cruel they were about Gods of Egypt. I mean, Gods of Egypt is a rampagingly stupid movie. And Alex Proyas has made some decent films in the past, but he's also made his fair share of clunkers. But he really got off his bike about how much critics hated his film. And he made this comparison with critics being vultures picking away at the carcass of a movie, which was kind of like comparing his own film to Roadkill, which I agree with. I mean, that really was what it was like. It was like cinematic roadkill. So hey, Alex, you and I can be friends. We both think your movie's roadkill.
We should run! Run? We mortals do it all the time!
So there we are, a quick recap of the worst movies of the last 10 years. At number 10, Pirates of the Caribbean Double Bill. At number 9, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. At 8, Wolves at the Door. Number 7, The Hottie and the Nottie. And number 6, Gods of Egypt. Tune in for the next Kermit Uncut blog in which I'll be doing number 5 to number 1 of my favourite films of the last 10 years.